I was thankful to join Endurance Adventures for ski out in Silver Star. So I don't think we've connected since then, but that was fantastic to get some on snow time. And then we have several snowmaking loops here in the Twin Cities, so that's been great to be able to get on those. Um, but this is kind of an interesting year in the sense that a lower snow year, and so maybe not as much time on snow. So I really like roller skiing. I don't think there's any reason to be afraid of roller skiing in the wintertime. I like it because you don't have to wax skis, and all of a sudden, instead of having a 2K loop or even a 30K loop, you can do a lot of other different things. Uh, you can go a lot of different places. So I really like that. I also really like the treadmill. So there's a roller ski treadmill up at Pioneer Midwest. CXC has one as well. There's more and more of those popping up. So if you can get access to a roller ski treadmill, I think that's a really beneficial tool. Did a race last weekend with multiple time NCAA champion and Olympian Magnus Bowe. He was on the roller ski treadmill for 2.5 hours the day before, just focusing on technique. And I think that's a really great tool. But it's also a really good tool if you've maybe been skiing and now there isn't snow and you're going to start running. And one of the reasons that's a great tool is that you don't get as sore. So any of these workouts like that Matt just described, like if I went out and I ran 6-minute miles for 10 miles, my legs would be pretty trashed. I do try to run consistently, but I don't run that fast. And so using a treadmill and inclining running at an incline is a way that you can get in really good workout cardiovascularly and muscularly without the neuromuscular strain that you might have if you're running substantially faster than you have been, or maybe even don't run, just hiking uphill. Something as our knees get a little bit more sore is something that's possible. So anyways, those are things that I like to think about this time of year. I think it's fun to have races, circled on the calendar and to think about those different races. Start thinking about, I wonder what the contingency plans for those races might be, and then coming up with your own contingency plans and say, okay, if that race is canceled or if that race doesn't happen, is there another thing that I want to do? Is there maybe a trip that I want to take as a reward near the end of the season? Those types of things. I think that's really fun. I've just been enjoying spending a little bit more time here closer to home. And yeah, I often think when we are skiing on snowmaking loops, it can be really good in training because it's not as exciting as, skiing a 50K point to point ski. Oftentimes I find that I make that more fun through intervals. I'm a big fan of having a buddy that you're going to meet out and ski, especially when the weather's going to be kind of rough, so that you have a little bit of accountability with that. And there's no real bad weather for cross country skiing, just bad clothing. So it can be kind of epic to say, okay, we're going to go out in the pouring rain and we're going to go and we're going to do this together, and that's going to be part of the fun. So yeah, I like that. General intensity side of things. We're getting closer to race season for myself. A lot of my races now will be longer races, sort of focused on that L3 side of things. And so I try to balance if I'm going to do, a bunch of, we're going to do a marathon essentially every weekend, then I really try to pick and choose and say, okay, I might do a race almost every weekend, but some races I'm just going to train through, and maybe I'm going to sit in my group of skiers and not do a lot of work. And there's other races where I'm like, okay, I really want this to be a hard effort and might not be the fastest way to ski it, but I'm going to spend a lot of time working and being at the front and kind of use it as a training race. And I always think that's fun is, when you think about like, what is my overall goal? And, do I want to do like, well, most people are like, okay, I want to do well in every single race, but that's not really quite possible. If that's the case, I like to think of it as I want to be even in every single race. And for me, I'd rather have a couple of races that were really, really good and have a few races that weren't going to be as good. So I try to play around with like, okay, which race do I think I want to really have that be that focus and think about that. Think about, what does the morning of that race look like, and try to simulate how that is. What time is the race? How might things play out? And so that you can play those play that visual, um, whatever, role play, that sort of visual thing in your mind, especially if you're skiing a bunch of loops, or maybe you're out roller skiing and say, okay, I'm going to try to mimic what this race is going to be like. So maybe I'll start in hillier terrain if it's the Sealy Hills Classic, and then a fair amount of double pole near the end, and a big sprint at the finish, and those kinds of things. So a number of places in the country are low in snow, unless you're up in Alaska. That you just that importance of getting some running in, so your body is used to running. Or if you don't run, maybe some pole hiking, because most likely, if you are able to find snow and you are doing some racing on snow, your warm up will likely be dry land. So making sure that your body, that isn't going to be a shock to your body. I've had many U.S. nationals where my warm up was all running and doing intervals running, and then switching into my ski boots, and same with World Cups. So